Some people change the world just by living their truth. In the queer Latinx community, these voices didn't ask for permission. They showed up, spoke out, and shined unapologetically. They're more than artists. They're icons of courage, love, and fierce authenticity. These are 10 bold names who turned personal truth into a public revolution and lit the way for millions more. In 2022, Disney Channel made history by introducing its first ever trans character played by Juliana Joel, a proud trans woman of Puerto Rican heritage. It wasn't just a television moment, it was a cultural earthquake. Raised in a conservative community in Florida, Juliana spent her childhood hiding who she was out of fear. But she dreamed of Hollywood not for fame, but to rewrite the narrative. And that's exactly what she did. Beyond acting, Juliana is a fierce advocate for trans rights, especially for Latinx youth. She speaks out about isolation, violence, hope, and the simple, powerful truth: I deserve to be loved like any other girl. Today, she's more than a Disney star. She's a living, breathing inspiration for thousands of queer teens writing their own stories. Manny Gutierrez, aka Manny MUA, was never just about makeup. He was about making space. Raised in a devout Mexican Catholic household, Manny hid his passion for years. But when he hit upload on his first YouTube video in 2014, he wasn't just stepping out, he was declaring war on every beauty standard that said brown boys couldn't sparkle. His tutorials were stunning, yes, but they also unpacked trauma, toxic masculinity, body image, rejection. He made beauty emotional, healing, and personal. And his fans, especially queer Latinx youth, showed up in droves. He became the first male ambassador for Maybelline. Then he launched his own makeup brand, Lunar Beauty, a queer, cosmic explosion of pigment and power. He's faced backlash slurs, threats, lost deals, but he never dimmed. If they're going to call me names, he said once, I might as well sparkle while they do. Manny's not just an influencer. He's a queer CEO, a changemaker, and a glamorized rebellion in motion. If you've watched Pose or the reboot of Queer as Folk, there's no forgetting Johnny Sibili, the man with the razor-sharp style, soulful eyes, and even sharper truth. Born in Miami to a Cuban-Dominican family, Johnny grew up in a world where silence was survival. But once he hit Hollywood, he flipped the script, choosing to speak up, loud and proud. On screen, he plays LGBTQ+ characters who are soft and strong, broken yet resilient, but it's off-screen on social media and in real life where Johnny truly shines. He talks about skin color, body image, love, and the pressure to man up in Latin culture. I'm not a perfect representative, he once said, but I'm a real one. In an industry and culture where queer Latinx folks are still fighting to be seen, Johnny Sibili is the spotlight that never fades. Do you love me? If that line from RuPaul's Drag Race is burned into your brain, you already know Valentinoff, Mexican-American drag queen with the classic beauty of a golden age film star. But Valentina isn't just a pretty face. She's the intersection of drag, Latinx identity, and fierce, unapologetic femininity. From the iconic red flower in her hair to dresses inspired by La Virgen de Guadalupe, Valentina brings Chicano culture to the global stage, singing in Spanish, performing live, and radiating pride from every pore. People once called her too much, too delicate, too femme. But she didn't dim her light. She looked back and said, being too much is exactly what I was born to be. Today, Valentina is a singer, actress, activist, and the reason countless queer Latinx people can stand tall and say, I am beautiful, I am powerful, I am enough. For years, Pablo Alborán was known as one of Spain's most romantic balladeers, with a voice like velvet, a quiet mystique, and a noticeable silence about his personal life. Then came 2020. In a heartfelt video, Pablo publicly came out as gay for the first time. I feel free. I can't keep quiet anymore, he said. It shook the Latin music world and touched the hearts of millions, especially in countries where queerness is still taboo. Since then, he's continued making music that gently yet powerfully speaks of same-sex love. No flashy symbolism, no over-the-top fanfare, just honesty. And that's what makes it revolutionary. In a world where many stars still hesitate to come out, Pablo Alborán proves that sincerity can be its own kind of rebellion. Kevin Frett didn't have a long life, but in the short time he had, he lit a fire for an entire generation. As the first openly gay Latin trap artista genre soaked in toxic masculinity, Kevin walked in with painted nails, platinum hair, and zero apologies. He didn't ask for permission. He didn't tone it down. He rapped about queer love, self-expression, and freedom with the force of a storm. But in January 2019, Kevin was tragically murdered in Puerto Rico. His death remains unsolved, and many believe it was a hate crime. Still, Kevin hasn't disappeared. His legacy pulses through every queer Latinx artist brave enough to step into the light, in every bold beat that celebrates freedom. In every queer kid listening to his music and whispering, "I can do it too." Henry Jimenez built his career capturing joy through a lens quinceañeras, drag shows, soft light on brown skin. But when he turned the camera toward his own life, the world saw something even more powerful: unapologetic queer Latinx love. Raised in Mexico, Henry's talent first made waves in fashion and influencer circles. His portraits weren't just technically brilliant, they radiated emotion, intimacy, truth. But it was in 2020 that everything changed. That's when he came out publicly and began posting with his boyfriend Glitter, heels, sunsets, and softness. Not everyone cheered. He lost clients, he got hate. But the queer community rallied hard, calling him a visual guardian angel. His TikToks went viral, him kissing his boyfriend in Oaxaca, strutting through colonial streets like a runway, and laughing through homophobic comments with grace. He wasn't just coming out, he was romanticizing joy. And that joy, it was radical. Today, with over 1.5 million followers, Henry uses his platform to mentor young artists, uplift queer businesses, and celebrate queer bodies in all their glory. His style is gender-fluid, unapologetically Latin pearls, Aztec motifs, cropped blazers, and pride flags flying high. Luis Gamarra didn't just break into music, he broke barriers. Born in Bolivia, raised in the US, Luis grew up feeling like he had to choose, be gay or be Latin. He chose both loudly. In 2017, he came out not through a press release, but through a song. A Spanish-language cover of You Will Be Found that he rewrote to speak directly to queer Latinx youth. The video hit home not just in Bolivia, but across Latin America. Suddenly, queer kids saw someone who looked like them, sang in their language, and told their truth. And Luis didn't stop. In 2021, his single, Por Eso Me Voy, became a queer anthem. The video was a colorful ride of drag, traditional dancers, and queer intimacy, a love letter to Latinidad and queerness fused. "I thought I had to choose," he said in an interview, "but now I know being Latin and gay is my superpower." Luis performs with the Bolivian and rainbow flags in hand. He speaks at schools. He mentors LGBTQ+ youth. He even started a nonprofit to help queer South American artists afford music school. If you've seen Eric Sedeno, aka Boy Cezanne, dancing in heels down a Brooklyn street, you've seen joy in its most defiant form. But Eric's not just a viral sensation, he's an artist, a designer, and a storyteller using softness as a weapon. Raised in Texas by a Mexican-American family, Eric grew up learning to shrink. "I was performing someone else's idea of masculinity," he once said. That changed in New York. He found fashion, he found color, he found himself. His TikToks? More than style, they're resistance, queer joy with a Latin soul. One iconic clip, a slow-mo strut to Beyoncé's Alien Superstar, hit 5 million views. The caption read, "Walking like my ancestors couldn't, so I could." In 2022, he dropped a capsule collection blending Chuco culture with queer iconography. The name? El Niño que brillaba demasiado, the boy who shined too much. A name that reclaims every insult hurled at queer Latin boys. Today, Eric uplifts queer creatives, designs fashion rooted in heritage, and encourages boys to cry, sparkle, and feel, because softness, he says, is revolutionary. If you know Brazilian telenovelas, you know they do drama big. But in Verdade Secretas, Rainer Cadet delivered something no one saw coming: queer magic in full emotional technicolor. Before 2015, Cadet was a respected stage actor, not yet a household name. That changed the moment he became Visky, a sharp, stylish, unapologetically gay fashion agent who wasn't comic relief or background noise. He was the story's beating heart. Visky loved, cried, fought, and glittered without shame. And Rainer didn't flinch. His performance felt real because it was. In scene after scene, he didn't just act, he revealed. Suddenly, queer viewers across Brazil and Latin America were saying, "I see myself." And he kept pushing. In Verdades Secretas 2, Visky returned sassier, stronger, sexier, including a now iconic gala scene in a sheer blouse and pearls that set the internet ablaze. Off-screen, Rainer carries that same fierce energy. He rocks painted nails and satin robes. He speaks out for LGBTQ+ rights, and though he hasn't labeled his sexuality, he's never hidden. He once said, "I don't play gay characters, I play people in love, and that should never be shocking." That quote didn't just go viral, it shifted the cultural conversation. Now, he's not just a star, he's a force, a reminder that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is be yourself on national television. With a voice like silk and eyes full of mystery, Johnny Mathis was the embodiment of 1950s romance. Born the 30th of September, 1935, he crooned his way into America's heart with timeless hits like Chances Are and Misty. But while his ballads whispered of love, his personal truth was one he tucked away for decades. In a 1982 interview, Mathis casually mentioned being gay, but the backlash was swift. The quote was pulled, and Johnny retreated. It would take nearly 30 more years before he openly embraced his truth in public. Unlike others who burst out of the closet, Mathis tiptoed into the light, quiet, dignified, and gentle just like his music. And yet his courage was no less profound. In a world that once demanded silence, his whisper still mattered. Today, he remains a legend not just for his songs, but for surviving a career built on longing while quietly carrying his own. When Luther Vandross sang, the world swooned. His voice smooth, lush, aching could make anyone feel loved. Songs like Never Too Much and Here and Now weren't just hits. They were soundtracks to weddings, heartbreaks, and deep midnight confessions. But Vandross himself lived a life behind curtains. Born the 20th of April, 1951, he remained closeted his entire career, reportedly out of fear that coming out would destroy his career, especially in the Black church and R&B communities. After his passing in 2005, close friends like Patti LaBelle confirmed what many had long suspected: Luther was a gay man who never felt safe enough to say it aloud. And perhaps that's why his songs resonate with so much longing. Every note is a balancing act between love and hiding, desire and fear. He sang about romance for the world, but his own story remained untold. In that silence there is heartbreak, but in his voice there is truth. There's no one quite like Meshel Ndegeocello. Born the 29th of August, 1968, she exploded onto the music scene in the early 1990s, bald, bold, and genre-bending, fusing soul, funk, rock, jazz, and poetry with unapologetic honesty. She didn't ask the industry to accept, Hirsch dared it to catch up. An early-out lesbian in a hypermasculine era, Meshel didn't soften her edges or erase her queerness. She confronted racism, homophobia, and toxic masculinity head-on in her lyrics. Her breakout single, If That's Your Boyfriend, He Wasn't Last Night, was more than chic, it was revolutionary. She's never been mainstream, and that's precisely the point. With 10 Grammy nominations, she's remained a critical darling and underground icon, refusing to fit in any box, not black, not female, not queer, not genre. Instead, she is the box breaker. In every guitar strum and whispered lyric, Meshel tells the world, you don't have to shrink to survive. In 2012, just before releasing Channel Orange, Frank Ocean did something extraordinary. Instead of giving an interview or a press tour, he posted a letter on Tumblr, a love letter, to a man. In a genre where hypermasculinity and homophobia still loomed large, Ocean didn't declare an identity, he simply shared a truth, that he had loved a man once deeply. And that moment cracked open the soul of R&B and hip-hop, revealing something tender, vulnerable, and radically honest. Born the 28th of October, 1987, Ocean has always been elusive. He rarely gives interviews, often disappears for years between projects, and seems allergic to fame. But when he sings, he says everything. Tracks like Bad Religion, Pink Plus White, and Nights aren't just beautifully written, they're emotional excavations, laced with queerness, not as spectacle, but as nuance, contradiction, and ache. Frank Ocean didn't need a rainbow flag. He needed space to whisper, and in that whisper, he gave a generation permission to be quiet, soft, fluid, and real. Born the 26th of April, 1886, Gertrude Ma Rainey wasn't just a singer, she was a force. She helped birth the blues, touring in vaudeville tents before recording more than 100 songs that laid the groundwork for American music. But what makes her legend even more electrifying is her openness about her love for women a century ago. In a world that barely allowed women to vote, let alone be queer and black and powerful, Ma Rainey defied all three. Her iconic 1928 song, Prove It On Me Blues, is still jaw-dropping in its defiance. Went out last night with a crowd of my friends. They must have been women, 'cause I don't like no men. She didn't, Hinchy declared, and she didn't apologize. Clad in gold teeth, feathered hats, and fringed gowns, Ma Rainey was flamboyant, sexual, and self-possessed. She mentored Bessie Smith and influenced everyone from Janis Joplin to Lizzo. Even in death, she passed away in 1939 milliamperes, remains a touchstone for anyone who dares to be black, queer, and unbothered. If Ma Rainey was the mother, then Bessie Smith was the empress. Born in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 1894, Bessie grew up on the margins poor, orphaned, and determined. Her voice smoky, rich, and aching carried her from the streets to sold-out theaters. She was soon the highest-paid black entertainer of the 1920s, and her records became lifelines for a generation coping with racism, poverty, and loss. And she lived just as loudly as she sang. Smith took lovers across the gender spectrum, and like her mentor, Ma Rainey, made little effort to hide it. In her circles, it was no secret. Her life was a mosaic of passion, defiance, and pain. She drank hard, loved harder, and refused to let society shame her desires. Her life was tragically cut short in 1937, following a car crash and a controversy over whether a segregated hospital denied her urgent care. But her influence on jazz, blues, and black womanhood can't be overstated. Nina Simone, Billie Holiday, Aretha Franklin, they all sang in Bessie's echo. Billy Strayhorn's name may not ring as loudly as Duke Ellington's, but his fingerprints are everywhere in American jazz. Born the 29th of November, 1915, Strayhorn was a classical pianist turned jazz visionary. He met Ellington in 1938, and from that moment on, the two were inseparable collaborators. Strayhorn penned the iconic Take the A Train and helped shape the lush, sophisticated sound that defined Ellington's orchestra. But while Ellington took the spotlight, Strayhorn preferred the shadows not out of modesty, but out of necessity. He was openly gay in an era when being so could end your career or your life. Yet he refused to compromise. He lived with dignity, dressed impeccably, and surrounded himself with queer artists and thinkers. His compositions like Lush Life, a haunting ballad of loneliness and resilience, tell the story of a man who understood sorrow deeply, but also beauty. He died of esophageal cancer in 1967 at just 51, but his music remains immortal. Every quartet plays a melancholic night tune. Billy Strayhorn is there whispering elegance through the chords. If disco was a heartbeat, then house music was its resurrection, and no one gave it more soul than Frankie Knuckles. Born the 18th of January, 1955, in the Bronx, he moved to Chicago in the late 70s and helped create a new sound, a fusion of disco, gospel, funk, and electronic rhythm. But more than that, he created a sanctuary. The Warehouse, the now legendary club where Frankie DJ'd, wasn't just a party, it was a refuge for black and brown queer people cast out of churches, homes, and clubs. With pulsing beats and gospel-infused grooves, Knuckles didn't just make people dance, he made them feel saved. His sets were sermons, his turntables altars, the crowd wasn't just sweaty, it was seen. Frankie never shied from his queerness, even when the music industry tried to erase it. He lived and spun proudly. Even after his death in 2014, his legacy endures every time someone escapes into sound and finds freedom on a dance floor. He didn't just build a genre, he built a world where outcasts could finally feel like. Few names scream rock and roll louder than Little Richard, the electric spark who ignited a global musical revolution. Born the 5th of December, 1932, in Macon, Georgia, Richard Penniman wasn't just an entertainer, he was a trailblazer who smashed the mold of what a black man in music could be. With his bouffant hair, sequin suits, and feverish piano pounding, Richard became a living contradiction, a queer black man preaching fire and brimstone, yet performing with flamboyant confidence that screamed freedom. His 1955 breakout hit Tutti Frutti, with its original raunchy lyrics, was unapologetically queer-coded before record executives scrubbed it clean. But even the sanitized version couldn't dull its electricity. It pulsed with camp, chaos, and unfiltered soul. Yet, Little Richard's life was marked by a painful duality. Raised in a deeply religious home, he felt eternally torn between his Pentecostal faith and his attraction to men. He denounced homosexuality publicly, even calling it unnatural, at times only to later express regret and return to his truth. He oscillated between preacher and performer, as if trying to reconcile the sacred and profane in his soul. But despite the torment, he never faded into the background. He remained loud, proud, and gloriously himself in a world that demanded silence. His influence echoes through artists from Prince to Bowie to Janelle Monáe. Little Richard didn't just open the door, he kicked it off its hinges. Before queerness was fashionable, before the mainstream dared to embrace gender fluidity, Sylvester was already there, sparkling, singing, and soaring. Born the 6th of September, 1947 in Los Angeles, Sylvester James grew up in the Black Pentecostal Church, where his passion for gospel harmonized with his emerging queer identity. Bullied and rejected by both family and faith communities, he sought refuge in music, drag, and the San Francisco queer underground of the 1970s. But Sylvester didn't want to be underground, he wanted to shine in daylight. With his breakthrough hit You Make Me Feel, Mighty Real in 1978, he did more than climb the chart. She redefined them. His falsetto was ethereal, his presence electric. He wore makeup, sequins, and gowns with the defiant grace of a warrior. For countless young LGBTQ+ listeners, especially those of color, he offered representation long before the word existed. Sylvester was also a fierce advocate during the early AIDS crisis, demanding visibility and dignity for his community. He insisted that his royalties support AIDS organizations upon his death, which tragically came too soon in 1988 when he succumbed to the disease at just 41 years old. But even now, his voice floats on dance floors, in drag shows, and in every moment someone queer decides to live loudly. Noah Schnapp didn't just come out, he dropped the most Gen Z coming out moment of the decade. A chill TikTok, a casual lip sync, and a caption that said it all. When I finally told my friends and family I'm gay after being scared in the closet for 18 years, and they all said we know, It was raw, it was real, and it was instantly viral, but behind the calm delivery was truth. In a recent Variety interview, Noah admitted that playing a closeted character while being closeted himself was incredibly tough. "Will help me find Noah," he said. Now, Noah is serving confident queer varsity energy and using his platform for good. He donated $100,000 to the Trevor Project, writing, "This is for every kid who thinks they have to hide. You don't." Drop a 1 in the comments if Noah gave you that extra dose of courage. Before TikTok existed, before coming out was safe, Ricky Martin was the global pop icon dancing through pain. This week, an old podcast clip resurfaced where Ricky said, "I would look in the mirror and say, 'I hate you.' Then I'd go on stage and smile." For years, he lived in fear of being outed. In 2010, he finally came out with the simple but powerful words, "I am a fortunate homosexual man." The response wasn't all celebration. Brands backed away, tabloids twisted the story, but Ricky stood firm, and over time, the world caught up. Today, he's using his platform to support LGBTQ+ youth across Latin America through his foundation, saying, "I lost years of my life to shame. I won't let anyone else lose theirs." Drop a 3 if Ricky's courage helped you feel more proud of who you are. Mae Martin doesn't just make people laugh, they make people feel seen. In a recent interview, they said, "Being non-binary isn't a costume I wear. It's who I've always been." That quote sparked a wave of TikToks, edits, and heartfelt posts from fans who finally saw themselves reflected on stage. Mae, who came out as non-binary in 2021, has long rejected labels, but now they're louder, prouder, and more stylish than ever. At this year's Edinburgh Fringe, Mae's new comedy special tackled identity, anxiety, and queer joy with raw honesty. Reviews called it brilliant, moving, and necessary. Offstage, Mae champions mental health and inclusive spaces for trans and non-binary voices. Drop a 5 if Mae helped you feel okay being exactly who you are. Taylor Tomlinson didn't post a dramatic coming out video. She told a joke. "Dating women is harder than dating men. At least now I'm not just disappointing my dad, I'm confusing my mom too." The crowd screamed. The internet ran with it. Later, on Instagram Live, Taylor said, "I'm not rushing to slap a label on it, but yes, my dating pool has expanded, and honestly, so has my heart." Taylor's always talked about awkward love and mental health, but now her comedy is touching even deeper for queer fans. No rainbow rebrand, just truth through jokes. Style update: tailored blazers, loose pants, and Professor Core. Think someone who teaches feminist film theory and roasts your ex at brunch. Drop a 4 if Taylor reminded you it's okay not to have it all figured out. Bella Ramsey doesn't play by the book or by the binary. The star of The Last of Us made headlines not just for her gripping performance, but for openly identifying as gender fluid. "I guess my gender has always been very fluid. Someone would call me she, and I wouldn't think about it. Someone else calls me he, and I'm cool with that too." That kind of relaxed realness has turned Bella into an icon for Gen Z queers everywhere. No big declarations, no dramatic posts, just quiet confidence and a whole lot of talent. On red carpets, Bella's fashion speaks volumes. Structured suits, bold silhouettes, and a refusal to dress for anyone but herself. Drop a 6 if Bella's journey helped you feel less alone in the in-between. Lil Nas X didn't tiptoe out of the closet he launched out with a glitter cannon and a devilish grin. When Old Town Road exploded onto the scene in 2019, nobody expected the cowboy-hatted teen behind it to become one of the most disruptive, daring, and unapologetically queer artists of our time. But Lil Nas X had other plans that didn't involve playing it safe. His 2021 BET Awards performance became the stuff of legend as he passionately kissed a male backup dancer live on stage, sending shockwaves through an industry still uncomfortable with Black queer expression. He wasn't asking for acceptance, he was demanding space. Then came the Met Gala, decked out in a metallic, devil-horned leather ensemble that blurred the line between fashion and protest. The message? Queer black boys can take up space, be outrageous, and own every second of it. But Lil Nas X is more than viral moments and iconic looks. In candid interviews, he's opened up about growing up in Georgia, battling internalized homophobia, and using music as a lifeline. I felt like I was pretending to be someone I wasn't, he shared. So what was the tweets are wild, hilarious, and full of chaotic joy, but they're also armor. Humor became a survival tool. Confidence, a form of protest. Drop a 7 if Lil Nas X reminded you that authenticity isn't just brave, it's revolutionary. Before she was dodging Daleks in Doctor Who, Yasmin Finney was just a teenage girl in Manchester making raw, vulnerable TikToks about what it meant to be young, black, and trans in a world that didn't always see her. Her videos were fearless and refreshingly honest, from the awkward realities of dating to the quiet triumph of getting her first hormone prescription. They weren't just posts, they were lifelines for thousands of kids who saw themselves in her. Fast forward a few years and Yasmin has become a breakout star in British television. She stole scenes as Elle in Netflix's Heartstopper, and now she's making history as one of the first openly trans characters in Doctor Who. On and off screen, she's challenging norms and smashing ceilings, armed with vulnerability and that signature soft glam aesthetic, sheer gowns, opera gloves, and a quiet, unwavering confidence that screams power. "I want to be the trans girl I never saw growing up," Yasmin once said, and she's done just that. She's not just showing up. She's shining, leading, and proving that trans joy deserves to be seen everywhere, even in time and space. Drop an 8 if Yasmin reminded you that visibility is magic and trans girls are already legends. Kit Connor became a heartthrob almost overnight thanks to Heartstopper, the sweet LGBTQ+ teen drama that warmed hearts around the world. But as his fame grew, so did the speculation. Fans, some well-meaning, others intrusive, began pressuring him to label his identity. Twitter threads, TikToks, and Reddit posts analyzed every move he made. And then, in a single tweet, Kit said what he never should have had to. "I'm bi. Congrats on forcing an 18-year-old to come out." It was a gut punch, a reminder that no matter how supportive online fandoms claim to be, queer people are still expected to perform their truth on demand. Kit's forced coming out sparked conversations about boundaries, parasocial relationships, and the ugly side of internet obsession disguised as allyship. Since then, Kit has been reclaiming his story. He's stepped back, re-emerged stronger, and begun using his platform to call for respect not just for himself, but for all queer people navigating fame. His fashion choices have evolved too, brooding earth tones, boxy silhouettes, and subtle gender-fluid details that say, "I'm here and I'm done explaining." Drop a 9 if Kit reminded you that being out should always be a choice, never a demand. Bretman Rock didn't just break the mold, he shattered it in heels, bedazzled shades, and a tropical breeze of pure confidence. What began as makeup tutorials laced with sass and sarcasm turned into a global phenomenon. But Bretman is more than a beauty guru. He's an icon of queer excellence, unapologetic femininity, and Filipino pride. Born in the Philippines and raised in Hawaii, Bretman grew up surrounded by a blend of tradition and tropical chaos, and he infused both into his persona. Whether he's voguing on a mountaintop, roasting haters in his signature pidgin English flair, or rocking a chainmail crop top on the red carpet, Bretman is the definition of extra in the best way. But behind the glitter and giggles is a deeper message. Be who you needed when you were younger. "I didn't grow up seeing anyone like me on television, so I became that person," he said, and it shows. He's used his fame to spotlight LGBTQ+ issues in Southeast Asian communities, talk about mental health, and redefine what it means to be masculine, beautiful, and loud. His reality show MTV's Following, Bretman Rock, was a chaotic, hilarious hit. His Instagram captions are pure gold, and his style? Think mesh shirts, highlighter-colored nails, and confidence you can't teach. Drop a 10 if Bretman taught you that your loudest self might just be your truest self. If Sunday Woo Hyun whispered and Jae Chan smiled, then Kim Ji-woong smoldered. With eyes that question, lips that linger, and a presence you can't look away from, Ji-woong doesn't just play gay, he channels it. In Kissable Lips and Roommates of Pungduk 304, he brought queer romance to life with a sensuality that felt authentic and unafraid. Most actors tread carefully. Ji-woong leaned in. And then, he stunned everyone by joining Boys Planet and debuting in ZB1. At 25, older than most trainees, he wasn't supposed to win, but fans didn't vote for just a face. They voted for presence, for power wrapped in stillness. He's never labeled himself. Never needed to. His aura says everything. Drop a 3 if Kim Ji-woong's slow-burning intensity reminded you that power doesn't need noise, it just needs truth. He had the model face, the perfect bone structure, the kind of masculine look that screams K-drama leading man. But Jang Yui-soo chose something softer. In Where Your Eyes Linger, he played Kang-guk, a bodyguard in love with his best friend. No over-the-top declarations, just glances, just ache, just real. He didn't shout, he simmered, and audiences felt it deeply. It wasn't just a performance, it was a disruption. A model-turned-actor daring to lead Korea's first BL drama with sincerity and zero irony. "I just wanted to show love that feels real," he said, simple words. But in a culture where silence still shields careers, they carried weight. He's still working quietly films, modeling, smaller dramas, but his mark remains. Drop a 4 if Jang Yui-soo's elegance reminded you that grace, when honest, can cut deeper than spectacle. He was young, unknown, a trainee fresh off Produce X 101, and then he did something no one expected. He led Korea's first ever BL drama. In Where Your Eyes Linger, Han Ji-chan played Han Tae-ju, a boy caught between desire and duty. His chemistry with Jang Yui-soo? Electric. Their tension? Palpable. Their love? Undeniable. He didn't scream for attention, he just showed up and changed history. After that, Light on Me cemented him as a gentle icon in storytelling. He kept his answers humble, his fashion fluid, his presence quiet. And Yeth shook the system. Drop a 5 if Han Gi-chan's quiet bravery reminded you that the boldest revolutions often start with a whisper. Yoo-jun didn't come from a powerhouse agency. He didn't arrive with hype or legacy. But in Nobleman Ryu's Wedding, 2021, he brought something else entirely: stillness, grace, and queer longing wrapped in hanbok. In the historical BL drama, Yoo-jun played a nobleman who finds himself in a fake marriage only to slowly fall for his groom's brother, who's also a man in disguise. It could have been played for laughs. Yoo-jun played it with aching beauty. His performance was filled with quiet pauses, softened gazes, and slow simmering desire that felt sincere rather than stylized. For a moment, he made queer love feel timeless 7 in a Joseon-era setting. He didn't make headlines, but he made history for the fans who were watching closely. Drop a 6 if Yoo-jun's calm depth reminded you that love, in any era, deserves to be portrayed with dignity. Lee Se-jin once walked the idol trainee path on Produce 10 101, known for his soft voice and quiet charm. But when he stepped into the BL drama Mr. Heart, he became something more, a quiet heartthrob for queer storytelling. He played Sang-ha, an optimistic track runner who slowly melts the heart of a grumpy roommate. It's a classic setup, but Lee Se-jin's portrayal was anything but typical. There was no overacting, no exaggeration, just genuine chemistry, awkward silences, and smiles that meant something. He embraced the role fully, without fear of public judgment, and by doing so, he helped normalize intimacy between men in Korean media, especially for the younger generation who grew up watching idols like him. His fashion? Soft. His voice? Gentle. His impact? Real. Drop a 7 if Lee Se-jin's warmth reminded you that intimacy isn't weak, it's revolutionary. Once a member of the K-pop group My Name, Kang In-soo shocked fans when he took the lead role in Wish You, opposite Sundae Woo Hyun. What made it bold? He didn't just agree to play queer, he owned it. As a street musician falling for a quiet office worker, Kang In-soo delivered a performance that was intimate, physical, and deeply emotional. The scenes weren't shy, they were honest. And for many viewers, especially queer Korean youth, it felt like being seen for the first time. What's more, he even recorded the OST himself, blurring the line between actor and character. His voice, his emotions, his vulnerability, it all became part of the story. He wasn't trying to make a statement, he was telling a love story. Drop an 8 if Kang In-soo's all-in honesty reminded you that queer love deserves to be sung as much as shown. In Blooming, 2022, a drama about perfectionism, self-doubt, and unexpected affection, Jung Yui Jae played the popular film student who slowly draws out a reclusive classmate. His character, Siwon, is confident, composed, and deeply tender. What stood out wasn't just the romance, it was the restraint. Jung Yui Jae didn't perform the role for drama, he embodied it with quiet realism. No flamboyance, no camp, just the kind of presence that makes you feel like you're watching something real unfold. And in a country where subtle male intimacy is still rare, that matters. Since then, he's taken on more layered roles, building a reputation as an actor who doesn't flinch at emotional depth. Drop a 9 if Jung Yui Jae's tender dominance reminded you that real confidence doesn't have to shout. Few knew his name before Our Dating Sim premiered in 2023, but after just one episode, Cho Hyun-min became a rising BL favorite, and by the end, a queer screen legend in the making. He played Lee Won, a soft-spoken game developer reconnecting with his high school crush. What made the performance shine wasn't big gestures, it was the small ones. Fingers brushing, eyes meeting, hearts breaking quietly. What was once considered niche fan service became, through him, real romance. His fashion, pastel and playful. His energy, respectful, emotionally intelligent, and deeply endearing. He didn't just play a gay lead, he played someone learning how to love again. And we watched every second like it was holy. Drop a 10 if Cho Hyun-min's emotional precision reminded you that queer love is already cinematic, it just needs a stage. Too beautiful, too tender, too queer-coded Sun Woo Hyun wasn't supposed to shake the system, but he did. In 2020, while Korean dramas still tiptoed around LGBTQ+ themes, Wish You, Your Melody from My Heart, landed like a whisper wrapped in a scream. Woo Hyun wasn't flamboyant or ironic. He played a shy singer who fell for another man with no winks, no safe distance, just quiet longing and open vulnerability. The backlash came fast. Conservative media called it dangerous. Netizens warned he'd ruined his career. But something else happened too. The world took notice. Fans from the US to Brazil called him a queer icon. Twitter crowned his performance soft boy perfection. YouTube clips exploded. And Woo Hyun? He stayed calm. Love is universal, he said. Acting should be too. He never labeled himself. He didn't make a statement. He simply chose love and let it speak. And that, in a culture allergic to disruption, was nothing short of radical. Drop a 1 if Sundae Woo Hyun's softness reminded you that resistance doesn't have to roar, it can hum gently and defiantly. In the hyper-controlled world of K-pop, image is everything, and Park Jae-chan shattered it beautifully. As a member of DKZ, he was already on the rise. But when he played the lead in Semantic Error, a gay teen love story, everything changed. He wasn't just acting, he was telling a story thousands had been waiting to see. His performance? Raw, sweet, real, no distance, no apology, just a young man falling in love. And the world noticed. TikToks, fan edits, and thirst threads surged. The show became a global hit. BL, once niche, was suddenly mainstream, and Jae-chan was its face. Yes, some fans called it a gimmick. Some feared he'd gone too far. But Jae-chan didn't flinch. "Love is love," he said. "All stories deserve to be told." He didn't need to come out, his actions did the work, and they spoke volumes. Drop a 2 if Park Jae-chan's gentle courage reminded you that sometimes the most powerful protests come dressed as tenderness.